The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, my name is Jillian Schaefer and I'm the Marketing Coordinator for SWK Technologies. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar, Next Level Retail Automation for Sage and Acumatica Users, presented by Matt Wasink of SPS Commerce. A little housekeeping before we get started. Everyone has been placed on mute to keep the background noise down. However, you can submit any questions you have throughout the webinar. To submit a question, look for the questions section in your GoToWebinar. We will answer all questions at the end of the presentation. We are recording this presentation and it will be distributed tomorrow to all attendees as well as to those who registered but were not able to attend. Please take a moment during the presentation to answer our 2 poll questions and after the presentation to answer our 1 survey question. With that said, we appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to attend our webinar. We're here to help get the most out of your software solutions and help you find an easier way to run your business by providing you software and industry knowledge, tools, and support whenever you need it. We've invited SPS Commerce here today because they are the industry experts on retail automation. So whether you're here doing research for a new solution or you're just here to learn, we'd like to encourage you to ask any questions throughout the webinar. Lastly, as a quick reminder, SWK is constantly sharing important updates and software tips and tricks on our social media channels, so we encourage you to follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to Matt.
Awesome, thank you, Jolene. And I'm assuming everyone can see my screen okay?
Yep, it looks great.
Great. As she mentioned, my name is Matt Wasink, and I am the Senior Channel Manager at SPS Commerce for our Sage market. And I know we have Acumatica customers on as well today, which is great. We actually have a lot of similarities between our solutions in those 2 spaces. And so we'll kind of cover big picture questions as it relates to Sage and Acumatica, but we'll also kind of take a step back and really kind of what I'd like to do today is help you as customers think, how do we connect to not just the retailers, but all of the different sales channels that we have where we're gathering orders, whether those are B2B orders or B2C orders, and how do we streamline that process and automate it as much as possible so that we can eliminate chargebacks, reduce manual labor costs, etc. So we'll take kind of a big picture approach initially and then kind of slowly focus in on different ways and elements of how SPS can come alongside you in either your Sage or Acumatica system and help you to automate that process. So great to have you along. As Jolene mentioned, I'd love to answer any questions that you have, so feel free as you have them just to shoot them over in that little question tab that you have in front of you. And when we see those, I'll do my best to grab them and answer them. As we get started, as I mentioned, fulfilling orders is a very complex, necessary evil of doing business, right? And for SPS, we've been the industry leader in the space of helping customers automate that order to cash process for over 25 years. What we see typically is our customers fall into one of the 4 buckets that you see on the screen in front of you. And really moving from left to right, you have sort of increasing levels of complexity and needs for those customers. We have some customers where they're reaching out to SPS for the first time because they have maybe their first EDI trading partner. They don't know what EDI is, they barely know how to spell it, and they have no idea what's required of them. So here they're just looking for a company that can come alongside them like SPS and help them with the compliance that's being required of them by Costco or Target or Walmart or someone like that. The beauty of SPS's model, though, is we're able to actually function as a piece of technology and a partner in this process that helps you to promote scalability. And so we can grow with your company as your trading partner needs increase and as the complexity increases. So maybe it's now you've gone from that first trading partner to you have multiple channels and multiple trading partner requirements. And so it went from a single trading partner with a single way in which you were receiving orders to juggling 5 to 10 different portals and partners and different processes. And so it's becoming more complicated for your team to keep straight how they manage those orders, even all the way over into helping with supply chain complexities, maybe adding in a 3PL, a third-party logistics company into the mix that's helping you to ship your product. Or it's at the point now where the volume levels that you're receiving in terms of these orders in the different channels is a high enough level of volume that you realize we actually need to automate these orders into our back-end system. And so we actually want to take these orders and pull them all the way into our Sage ecosystem or into our Acumatica ecosystem. The big thing to remember here is, regardless of where you are on that continuum of complexity, SPS can come alongside you with a scalable solution that's priced to meet your needs where they're at. And that's just a really nice piece to keep in mind, because for a company, it's really hard to invest a lot of money in a technology and then realize, 2 or 3 years later, you've outgrown it, and now you have to disrupt how you're doing things to move to something that's better. With SPS, you have something that's much more future-proof than that. When we talk about those complexities on the trading partner level, part of the thing that makes EDI difficult, and we're speaking EDI specifically, we'll actually broach away from EDI later in the call to look more at marketplace and e-commerce challenges as well. But for EDI specifically, it's sort of a necessary evil where retailers drive EDI compliance. The trick is no two retailers use the same requirements, require the same documents, etc. And so for a customer, it becomes really a tangled mess pretty quickly, where you're working with a company like Kroger, where the retailer has 4 to 6 required documents. What are those required documents? Where someone like 7-Eleven has only 5, or Walmart has a varying degree. SPS is able to stand in the middle of all of that, and you can leverage our knowledge and expertise for all of those different trading partner requirements, whether it's testing scenarios or different ways that that retailer wants to communicate, whether it's an AS2 method or as a VAN. SPS can handle any of those requirements, and we actually proactively manage over 9,000 changes a year from retailers. Sometimes those are as significant as a retailer adding a new document that they require. So a good example this last year, Walmart added the requirement that for everyone that was fulfilling orders at their brick and mortar stores and distribution centers, they now required an ASN. That's a really significant change for customers who are trading with Walmart. You have to be compliant with those new advanced shipping notice requirements for the Walmart EDI document itself. But because SPS literally connects thousands of suppliers into Walmart, Walmart proactively reaches out to SPS and said, hey, we're going live with the new ASN requirement. Here's what those requirements are. Can you build this out? So we did all of that proactively for our customers, so they were completely insulated from that change event. When Walmart announced there was a new ASN requirement, it was followed up by an announcement from SPS to our customers saying, hey, we're on top of it. It's already taken care of. We already have that document live and in production. A really significant peace of mind for our customers. The other piece that complicates this, obviously, is not just the requirements of the different trading partners. Every customer has their own unique business processes. You have your way of doing things, whether that's with your own warehouse, within your own system, your own user-defined fields that you use within that system, leveraging a 3PL, etc. And so the other piece of it that's really crucial is having a company like SPS that will come alongside you and not only knows the intricacy and details and complexity of those trading partners, but also can take that and match it and customize it so that it fits with your unique systems and how you want to manage that order to cash process. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. It's really making sure that how we connect you with those trading partners and how we normalize that information into your system fits and meets you where you have your needs. So it's really two sides of that complexity coin that SPS helps you to manage. Taking a step back from that as well, it's not just that SPS offers best-in-class EDI technology. We also have other products that allow you to really differentiate yourself as a customer within that retailer space. One of those tools on the right is called our analytics tool, and this captures sell-through data, so you can actually see live performance data with your retailers. Let's say you have product on the shelves at Dick's Sporting Goods. You can capture sell-through data, so you're seeing information about how that product is selling in those different stores. Very useful analytics and information that allow you to better position how to sell your products and what to push out to the retailers you're working with. The other side of this, and I think this is one that's really worth kind of pausing on, is what we call item data. Any of you customers that are working with retailers are for sure having to send item data to said retailer. Item data is about sending product attributes, right? Color, SKU, size, information, pictures, etc., that those retailers then use, whether they're putting those up on their website or then putting them on the shelves in their stores. That collecting of item data is something that retailers have to do, and they have to do it by interacting with you as the customer, as their vendor, but it's a very, very painful process. Typically, different retailers will have different requirements for how they want to manage that, whether that's sending PIM information or spreadsheets back and forth that then have to be reconciled, whether that's done through an API connection, or even sometimes leveraging an EDI document called an 832. Even leveraging an EDI document, though, that EDI document, the 832, if your retailer requires it, only typically captures about 40% of the necessary item data that a retailer has. At a big picture level, it's a really, really complicated process that completely changes from retailer to retailer. One retailer has a very specified way of doing it with spreadsheets, and they require item data once a quarter. Another retailer is going to require that item data via email, and they're going to require it once a year. A third retailer has a totally different method. The problem for you as a customer is you have to completely change how you operate with each buying organization that you work with, and it makes it really, really hard to streamline how you process that item data. On the retailer side, it's really, really frustrating for those buying organizations and their buyers, because it's just a dependency where they have a process that can become very tricky with the suppliers they're working with, and if they can't get good item data, it slows down their ability to place orders, to get information on those items and get items on the shelves so that you can sell them. The beauty of our assortment product is it allows you to actually automate the entire item data process. Now, there's benefits to both sides, but both of those pieces benefit you as a vendor. For the selling organization, our assortment product allows you to have a single method by which you send all of that item data, regardless of the requirements of the retailer. You send it using our assortment tool, and then we normalize that information and match it to the required way in which the retailer wants to receive it, whether that's a spreadsheet, an API, or the EDI 832 document. It makes it for a single streamlined process for you to send that item data, and then we make sure it's getting to the buying organization and your retailer in the format that they require. The benefit for the buying organization is it makes it a much cleaner process. You think of a company like Walmart, right, where they have thousands of suppliers they're working with all sorts of disparate processes for how they send this item data. One of the things that's really awesome about this assortment product is, for you on the vendor supplier side, it allows you to drastically improve your vendor scorecard with those retailers. And this is a real differentiator in the space, because we're the only company that offers the ability to automate item data through this assortment tool. And when I say it improves your vendor scorecard, what I mean there is, for those vendors and those buying organizations, they have essentially a scorecard, a report card for the different suppliers they work with. And when you start leveraging automated item data through assortment, it means they can be assured as a buyer that they're able to send and receive really good, clean data on that item information. And it incredibly streamlines how they're able to get that information from you, place the orders they need, and then making sure that the product that they're getting, they have good information on, so they can get it on shelves, get it out of distribution centers, and sell your product more efficiently. For a buyer, when they're trying to decide who are we going to buy from, what product are we going to put on our shelves, one of the things that they look at is, what's the scorecard of this vendor? How easy are they to work with? How good is their technology? How good is the information I get from them? And so this assortment tool not only cleans up how you send that item data and saves you manual labor costs across the different retailers you work with, it actually improves your relationship with those buying organizations, which are obviously crucial for you to maintain as you continue to do business in your space. That's just a preview of that assortment tool and item data. It's something I wanted to call out because it's a really unique, cost-effective way where a customer can differentiate themselves with the retailers that they work with. At this point, though, we have our first poll question, so I will give it back over to Jolene to post that. Quick poll you have in front of you. Really just what concerns you most about your current order-to-cash setup? You can select one of those following. Maybe it's scalability, really thinking like, how future-proof am I, or retailer compliance. Maybe it's a question about the integration capabilities of your current EDI supplier. Maybe it's kind of what we'll look at in a little bit. How do I streamline different sales channels? How do I automate e-commerce and marketplace? And then even a more kind of proactive approach, how do I automate my vendor and supplier community into Sage and Acumatica in the same way that large retailers automate their vendor and supply community? So I'll give you a second to answer those. Just helpful information for me too, as I see kind of where most of the questions are, I can kind of tailor the things that we'll dig a little bit deeper to as we go through the webinar.
All right, and it looks like there was about a 50% even split between automating e-commerce and marketplace concerns and automating your vendors and suppliers in a Sage and Acumatica.
Awesome, perfect. That actually anticipates well where I wanted to go with the deck. So I was hoping that would maybe be where we saw the results come in. Speaking to that, hey, how do we automate our vendor community? Part of the problem is current solutions in terms of technology for retailers and buying organizations really only solve a part of their problem. And so you'll have retailers constantly trying to figure out, how do we keep our edge? How do we keep a technology edge and make sure that we're operating well? And so they'll invest in new technologies. And here we're thinking of all sorts of buying organizations, from the Walmarts and Targets and Costco's of the world down to smaller, more regional ones. They're asking questions of, how do we manage the ordering of excess inventory? How do we manage process change and how we're working with our vendor community? And then the other piece of that is, how much new staff do we have to add to continue to make this process smooth and streamlined? The thing that SPS has found as we work with retailers, and we really are the world's retail network, we work with those large, significant buying organizations, is 91% of retailers don't get the essential information that they need from their suppliers. And when they're not getting good information, it makes it very difficult. Even with the right technology, you're experiencing constant process change and having to add excess staff because you have a problem with how you're interacting with those vendors. How we think of that typically tends to be retailers being the Walmarts and the Targets and the Amazons of the world. The reality is, though, SPS allows even smaller customers that have their own small vendor community to leverage the same kind of automation potential as those large retailers. In the EDI space, what that looks like is SPS offering you what's called a full service EDI solution. Full service EDI really recognizes EDI at the end of the day requires 7 components to be done successfully. And those 7 components include that trading partner expertise, design and configuration of the system, a technology tool that allows for the sending of the data, managing trading partner communication, testing, etc. For SPS, the unique thing that we provide in the market is that we are a full service provider. We're the only provider that checks all 7 of those boxes, which truly allows you to outsource your EDI and those EDI needs to SPS so that it's a pain-free, worry-free process. Our competitors in the space typically only check 2 or 3 of these boxes, roughly 30 to 40% of the solution that you need. They offer you some design and configuration, some sort of technology tool, and some sort of ongoing limited resources, but they can't help you necessarily with the testing and launch. They won't take on the trading partner communication for you, communicating with Walmart, for example, on that new ASN requirement. And they lack trading partner expertise. They don't have the breadth and depth of network that SPS has. Everything that you see here that isn't colored blue is something that falls on your shoulders if you're not working with SPS as a full service EDI provider. It makes the process more painful and more expensive because you have to devote more manual labor hours to it. The other piece that we can think about as we consider this that you kind of mentioned in the poll was, what do we do with our marketplace and e-commerce orders, right? So you have the EDI kind of wholesale orders that has traditionally been something that SPS has really been the market leader in. We lead the space. For 25 years, we've been the leader in that EDI wholesale bucket. But what we realize is, especially now post-pandemic, there has been an accelerated push towards companies and customers having to diversify how they sell to the public. The public's buying needs changed when we were forced into quarantine. So while we were already developing e-commerce needs and marketplaces were a growing thing, the quarantine and the pandemic accelerated all of that rather quickly. The beauty of SPS is we allow you to grab those orders regardless of where they're coming from or the channel that they orient in. Whether that's something that originates as a wholesale order, EDI with a traditional retailer and distribution center, or it's something that's coming in as an e-commerce order from your Shopify, Magento, or WooCommerce site, right? Or even something that's a marketplace order that's coming in from Amazon Marketplace or Target Plus, etc. The benefit with SPS is we can grab any of those channels, pull those orders, normalize them, and bring them into your Sage or Acumatica system in the same way. So for you as a customer, you can receive all of them and have a single process for how you manage those orders within Sage 100, let's say. That doesn't vary depending on whether this is an order that came from Target or an order that came from Amazon Marketplace or an order that came from your Shopify website. It's a game changer for customers because they can have a single process that's truly streamlined regardless of where that order comes from. Part of the reason why we're able to do this and accomplish this full service promise and the grabbing of these different channels is because SPS is the world's retail network. We have 90,000 customers in our network, which means we have 90,000 trading partners that we are pre-built out to, that we help them to exchange information. 3,000 of them are retailers and buying organizations, distributors, grocers, manufacturers, etc. We also have over 1,000 3PLs that are pre-built within this network. And we're also the preferred testing and certification vendor for over 400 retailers. So here you think of like Cabela's and Williams-Sonoma, Dick's, Target, Walmart, etc. SPS for 400 of the largest retailers in the world is the outsourced testing and certification vendor. So when they decide, a good example would be Williams-Sonoma this past year. Williams-Sonoma decided, hey, we're shutting down our web portal, which we've always used to communicate orders, and we are moving to EDI. They hired SPS to say, SPS, here are our 1,200 customers, our vendors, sorry. We want you to take these 1,200 vendors and test them and make sure that they are compliant with our new EDI system. SPS managed that entire process for Williams-Sonoma to help make sure that they now had a compliant and automated setup with their vendor community. The beauty for customers like you is SPS can do the exact same thing for you that we do for the Targets and the Walmarts and the Williams-Sonomas of the world. We can, on your sell side, if you will, grab all sorts of different channel orders, whether those are e-commerce, marketplace, EDI wholesale, and pull them into your system, Sage 100, Sage X3, Acumatica. But we can also do the same thing and pull in your vendor community and drive the same kind of EDI compliance that large retailers do, so you have automation on that side as well. At the end of the day, this promise of full service EDI and really full service retail order to cash automation is possible because of best-in-class technology and tools, but also the people and expertise and process and relationships we bring to the table. In terms of the technology, I think it's really important to call out that 90,000 trading partner existing infrastructure. When you're adding a new trading partner, chances are SPS already has that connection built out, and we're plugging you into an existing reusable connection that's used by dozens, hundreds, even thousands of other vendors just like you. But in terms of that Sage and Acumatica space, our software that sits there and helps to pull all of that order and data into your backend system is the endorsed EDI technology by both Sage and Acumatica. It's certified, and when you go to Sage and Acumatica as ERP publishers and ask them, who should we do EDI with and how should we get it integrated into our system, they point you to SPS. And the reason for that is because our technology is natively embedded within those systems. You're not jumping out to a different system to manage it. It's not a generic bolt-on adapter that's used across all sorts of different ERPs. For both Sage and Acumatica, that technology lives within Sage, it lives within Acumatica. So for your employees who are working within the system, they live within that Sage system that they know so well. The other thing I want to call out here that I think is really, really important is our full service promise is only possible because we have over 1,700 employees that insulate you from the day-to-day headaches of EDI, the day-to-day headaches of managing these different channel streams or managing these different retailer requirements. Of those 1,700 employees, 800 of them are in customer success, customer-facing roles. They live to stand up and ensure that we can deliver upon our 24/7 by 365 promise. For you as customers leveraging Sage and Acumatica, what's really, really unique in the market is when you raise your hand to say, hey, I have a customer support issue and I'm a Sage 100 user. When you reach out to SPS, you're working with a team of experts, a 60-person team that lives and breathes Sage. They know Sage. They know how to work with Sage. They know how your Sage system works. So you're not going into a generic customer service queue. You're working with our specific Sage team. Even on the implementation side, if you're getting things set up as a new Sage customer or a new Acumatica customer, when you're implementing those trading partners and getting set up, the team you're working with knows, lives, and breathes Acumatica. It's the system that they work with day in and day out. And that's a really significant differentiator and just a peace of mind element for our customers, knowing that they're not going into some sort of generic customer service queue. I will pause here for that second poll question. Just a question here to ask, when would you be interested in scheduling a time to discuss how we could streamline that order to cash process with your Sage or Acumatica system? And really here, it's asking the question of, we talked about the retailer complexities. You also have your own business requirements. I'd love to find time, myself or my counterpart, Mo, who works with Acumatica, where we could sit down with you and just take a look and see, hey, what are you trying to solve for? What's the thing that you're trying to smooth out and save time on? Or what are your specific requirements within Sage that we can help you kind of automate, and we'd love to schedule a time for that discovery or demo. Okay, looks like we're all done there. I'm going to jump ahead again. At a really high level, when we think of those back-end systems like Sage and Acumatica, and I don't want to just assume, some of you might be on the front end of exploring a move to one of those systems. Others of you are probably already within them, right? What SPS is seeking to do is untangle the complexity of how you connect with your trading partners and then pull that information into your back-end. The more difficult and complex that is, the more that you face risk every time a trading partner changes a requirement. And so for a lot of the customers that we see that are using a competitor, they have a point-to-point system where any sort of change that's made by any trading partner, they feel all the way back into how they're trying to operate in Sage on the day-to-day. What makes SPS unique is we have an approach that insulates you from all of those change events on both sides of how you're set up. So if we look on the left-hand side of the screen, here we're thinking of your customers, and these might be customers that are typical big box retailers that you're delivering via EDI. They might be e-commerce and marketplace setups. SPS normalizes all of that with a single way that we build it out. We pull all that information and push it, regardless of connectivity method, into your back-end system, into your headquarters. So you don't have to worry about any changes there. The real game changer for customers, though, is not just having automation with how they receive inbound purchase orders, whether those are EDI wholesale or e-commerce or marketplace. It's also saying and having that aha moment of realizing, you know what? We can do the same thing and capture the same differentiating value that a Target or an Amazon or a Walmart does. We can go to our same supplier community, our vendors, and we can actually pull all of those orders in the same method, leveraging EDI. And so we streamline. It's no longer emails to this vendor, spreadsheets to this vendor, phone calls and faxes to this vendor. Leverage SPS to help you onboard that vendor community to leverage EDI, so you have a single way that it's being done. And then grab all of that EDI information for those outbound purchase orders and inbound invoices and pull all of it into your Sage or Acumatica system. So for you, you now have both sides of the coin completely automated and living within that system, and you really truly have a single source of truth for your entire order to cash process. It eliminates significant amounts of that supply chain complexity and allows for a much smoother, future-proof, scalable solution. When we think of this and we think in terms of implementation, that's usually a question that folks will have. It's like, hey, if you're seeing the value, now the question becomes, okay, well, right now I have, 3 EDI trading partners using 2 different EDI vendors, and I have 4 retailer portals, and I have, an e-commerce website over here, and I'm connected to Amazon Marketplace. How do I get from there to what you're describing where it's automated? We have a very intentional implementation process that has been proven time and time and time again. We walk with you through every step of that process. And again, part of that full service promise is that SPS's implementation team shoulders most of the work that's being done, from setup and taking the lead with your retailers to interacting with them, to initial calls to figure out your business processes and how you want to have that plugged into your system, to taking on the testing requirements and managing all of those testing requirements that are needed. 1 out of 3 times no testing is required because of SPS's reputation with retailers. A retailer sees, hey, they're now going to be using SPS. That's all the retailer needs to know. They know that we'll be able to successfully manage the connection. We help you with that go live, and then also the ongoing process of continuing to monitor the fulfilling of those orders. When you go through that implementation process, you have a dedicated project manager who's with you every step of the way. In summary, kind of taking a step back again, what does all this mean as you kind of think of it for your company, and where are the opportunities for ROI, right? That's at the end of the day, you want to get leaner, you want to get more cost effective in how you're doing business. Well, SPS offers you the opportunity to have a full service provider that can automate all parts of those EDI requirements with retailers, but also streamline your channels. So it's not just wholesale EDI automation, it's leveraging the same process for marketplace and e-commerce automation. It can also give you that opportunity to have the peace of mind of knowing you have true 24/7/365 dedicated support specific to your system. You raise your hand with a need and you're a Sage customer, you're working with our Sage team to walk through how we can help support you, whether it's trading partner related, information related, new partner that you're adding, etc. And the other component of that obviously is then the ability to take it that last step and automating that same way with your vendor community. So here's the 10 trading partners and e-commerce and marketplace on your customer side that you're automating. And here's the 30 vendors that you work with to actually get your product produced, automating both of those sides, pulling that data into your Sage or Acumatica system, and having the peace of mind of knowing not only do you have the world's best-in-class EDI provider, you have Sage and Acumatica's certified, endorsed, and natively embedded technology, pulling that information into the ERP system that you use on a day-to-day basis. Just by way of kind of giving you a heads up, if you do want to reach out for follow-up with us, on the Sage side, if you're leveraging Sage, Sage 100, 500x3, etc., my name is Matt Wasink. I manage our Sage channel. I work hand in hand with SWK all the time. My email is mwasink@spscommerce.com. And then if you're on the Acumatica side, my counterpart Mo is the one who manages that channel. His email is there as well, ma.demirci@spscommerce.com. We look forward to having an opportunity to talk with you. Please don't hesitate to reach out. And even if it's just a, hey, we're not even sure if we're going to do this in the next month. This might be something we're doing a year down the road. We'd love to just connect and have an initial 10, 15-minute call to kind of help you think about how you might even start to begin to position things now on the front end of that. Having said that, I think Jolene was maybe going to have a time for some more Q&A, so I'll give her a chance to step back in here as well.
Thank you, Matt. We'll now open it up for questions. If you have any questions, please enter them into the questions section of your GoToWebinar. And just a reminder, everyone, we do have a subject matter expert here. This is a great opportunity to have your questions answered in real time. And we did have a few questions come in during the presentation, Matt. The first being, what is the timeline for implementation?
It's a great question. So we really have two parts of it. The first is just an EDI compliance timeline. So this is really just getting EDI connected to your trading partner. That can be done in as little as 3 to 7 business days. So for instance, hey, we're now going to be working with Walmart. Walmart needs us to be compliant. We can get it set up and you're able to exchange those EDI documents with Walmart in under a week. In terms of actually integrating that EDI connection into your backend system, it typically takes 4 to 6 weeks for the first trading partner that we integrate, and then 1 week per trading partner after that. So if you imagine like, hey, we're at the point now where we have 5 trading partners on Sage 100 that we want to integrate into that system, it would be a 4 to 6 week process for the first trading partner, and then an additional 4 weeks after that. So really a 2-month process to go from 0 trading partners integrated to having all 5 of them fully invested and fully up and running in that Sage system.
We have a couple more. What is the approximate cost of the solution?
So that's a thing that we'd love to have a conversation with you around. There are a couple of variables in there that can just levers that we have to be aware of. Part of it is really a question of volume. How many documents, EDI documents that is per month, or even just purchase orders on a monthly basis, are you seeing come in? That's a lever that really kind of changes the cost of what it looks like pretty significantly. The thing that's nice about it is, again, if you go back to that very first slide where it's like, hey, the varying levels of complexity, SPS is very intentional about having a solution that meets you cost-wise and support-wise where your needs are. So if it's your first EDI trading partner, right, and you're talking about, hey, we just need to get compliant and we think we're going to have 10 orders a month, there's a solution that's available for that that can be as little as $130 a month just to drive that EDI compliance. And then that scales up depending on the number of trading partners that you have in scope and the amount of volume that you're sending back and forth with those trading partners. But very intentional to have the cost really match the need and the level of complexity that you have.
And we have one more. Which versions of Sage does SPS integrate with?
Yep, so SPS has integrations with really all versions of Sage. It's a more productized approach for Sage 100, 500, and X3. For Sage 300, we partner with SWK as your reseller to do a little bit more of a customized approach. We can work with any of those, and for instance, like with Sage 100, as long as you're current on maintenance and running something that's version 2015 or more recent, we're able to manage that integration for you. So as long as you're current on that maintenance and running a more recent version of it, we're able to help you with the integration.
And we have a couple more that have come in. That integration you were mentioning is via fulfillment. What about MapDoc integration? Will that take a week as well?
Yeah, so the fulfillment piece is just that EDI compliance, right? Hey, retailer X says you have to start doing EDI. We can get you compliant and able to send EDI documents in a week. The MapDoc component, right, which is the actual software pulling that into your Sage or Acumatica system, that's the piece that takes about 4 to 6 weeks for the first trading partner and then 1 week per trading partner after that. We can actually run those typically concurrently. So if you get that first trading partner done in a month and you have 3 more left, they can kind of do those next 3 concurrently, and you're really taking about 2 to 3 weeks to finish out the MapDoc integration into that Sage or Acumatica system.
And we have one more. Where can we go for additional information on SPS?
Yeah, I think a great option is just to email me. We have some just marketing material that's available to you in terms of just videos that kind of walk you through what it looks like. SPScommerce.com is a great resource. There's a blog. There's also just a lot of places that are very intentional about being a landing resource for you that are even system specific. There's a Sage page there. There's an Acumatica page on the website that has more information for that. But honestly, a great starting point is just my email if you're a Sage customer, or Mo's email if you're Acumatica, and we'd be happy to just give you a little bit more tailored information to kind of what your questions are.
Awesome, and that looks like all the questions we have, Matt, so give me 1 minute as I take back screen control. Perfect. Thank you so much, Matt, for your informative presentation and for taking the time to be here today. And thank you everyone for attending our webinar. Have a wonderful rest of your day.